Hello, I'm Tommy Moore from the Bartitsu Lab, and in this short video we're going to be looking at short-range power generation. Now when we end up in a conflict we can find ourselves in a range which is a bit of a no man's land between a true grapple, a true wrestle and true striking opportunities, and in that range there is a mixture of both, what people call a dirty boxing range, where we're striking and grappling. And it's in that range that ideally, if grappling isn't our strong suit, and everyone should get experience with grappling, but let's say grappling's not our strong suit, or it's not as strong as his grappling, we're going to want to even the score by being able to cause some pretty decent damage at a closer range than his normal striking distance. And I just wanted to go through some of the tools for short range power generation that I personally find very, very useful. So the first, assuming we're in this closer than we'd like striking / grappling range, the first one we're going to look at is using the slamming door principle for a short hook. And it's essentially this. Imagine that this pad is the doorway and I am the door, and where my chest and the pad connects is the hinge to that door. When I'm throwing a strike, I want to treat my body as if I'm slamming the door. I'm slamming the door shut. This is Sonny Liston's preferred way of power generation, and many boxers have used it since. So my body slams the door shut. A really easy way to think about it is your hip and your shoulder are the extreme end of that door. So both should slam in to the target. If I didn't throw a punch, my shoulder should endeavour to hit that target. So the short range power generation for this nice tight little hook is using that slamming door principle. Shoulder and hip slamming the door shut. You're turning on the toes, but it's the hip and the shoulder that do most of the leg work here, slamming that door closed. So for example, if we're here and I've got my hands somewhat outside of his fence, so I'm trying to sneak my hands along the longer edge of his jawbone. So I'm trying to sneak my hands around the longer edge. So I've opened my hands, I might be a bit more effusive. Then I use that slamming door principle. Boom. The fist in this instance that's crashing in is stopping me getting all the way to the shoulder. But as far as I'm concerned, it's the shoulder that's going to hit the pad. So boom, slam the door shut. Slam the door completely shut, as far as you can. I like to fire this with as few moving parts as possible. So I like to keep the hook of the arm essentially as a solid unit. A solid unit with which I move right to left or left to right using the hip and the shoulders. And you can start to exaggerate that door slam. Exaggerate that door slam. I really like that as a way to build up short range power with a short range hook. Fence, 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 talk, 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 sneaking the hand around the outside. It's a very short arc between this hand and the longest part of his jaw, which is good leverage and good gross motor targeting. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, fired and slammed the door shut with my shoulder and with my hip. That's a nice easy way. The slamming door principle. Boom. Next one we're going to be looking at is, in fact no, just one more on that slamming door principle. It's also very easy to do off an elbow. Here, here. I'm still slamming the door shut, or visualising that the shoulder is slamming the door. So I go from here and go, me slamming the door shut. It's exactly the same. It allows me to make sure I've got the right weight transfer, the right ballistic power at short range. From here, smashing it straight in. Okay. Another power generation method is in corkscrewing the action. So in this instance, I'm going to use a forearm. I'm going to use the inner part of my forearm, a nice hard lump of bone. And it's almost like I'm going to be steering a very large ship here, or I'm in Fred Durst's rolling video. Either way, I'm rolling from here, almost from pronation So supination to pronation and back again. It's that rolling a big ship. And obviously you make that motion smaller and tighter. But again, from this close range, fucked up grapple, whatever you're in, biting, snarling, gouging, you want to hit something ballistic. You've got what we talked about, that hinge principle. The corkscrew principle rolls the ship. So we roll the wheel as we turn our hip and our shoulder. So that twist gives us extra speed, extra power, extra torque from here. So it's just from here, roll. If I was to just slide it in as a straight bar, doesn't have nearly the same power when I roll it in, when I corkscrew that motion. It's a nice, powerful little dig. So we're in this shitty grapple. I'll bash that in. That might be enough kazushia unbalancing for me to make a bit more space to fire off some heavier artillery. You know, a lot of these shots are about causing enough carnage up close to give you a bit of room to pop in something a bit more substantial. You know, it's very uncommon for these to be fight enders unless you've managed to pull it off where he doesn't know it's coming. Say from a fence opportunity, bang! That might do him. But mid-conflict, mid-tussle, mid-dirty boxing range, these are going to be things to cause quite a bit of damage to allow you to finish up out here. So that corkscrewing style motion, which you can also do with your fist. If you're not comfortable hooking in a vertical manner, you can also get that corkscrew energy here and punch in a Slavic fashion. So a lot of the former Soviet boxers, Russian Federation and so on, the thumb goes down somewhat. So the thumb rolls down, we get good knuckle targeting on placement. So in this instance, not so much the hinge principle, it's the corkscrew. Just roll it. Again, just nice, nasty, pre-escape digs. Easy, easy, easy enough to do. Okay, now moving to a final one. So we've got the hinge or the door principle. Slam the door with the shoulder and then put a tool in between the two. We've got the corkscrew principle. Then we've got the surge principle. So the surge principle is this. It's the same whether I'm throwing an uppercut or a chin jab or whatever. Assume now I've got a knife or a blade on my hip, like so. And yeah, imagine it's welded there. And I'm going to stab this bastard with my hip. So I surge upwards with the hip. I surge. My hip goes up and in. It's the exact same surging energy that allows you to put the right source behind a very close range uppercut. So very close. You can launch uppercuts from out here, fine, but a very close range uppercut, you want that surge or that very close range chin jab. For the purposes of visibility, I'm going to go with the chin jab. Again, just in abstract here, just so you can see the hip surge. So we're here, I'm going to fire the hip up. Remember, as if there was a knife going up into the target. This, again, has the fewest moving parts possible. I don't want to reach for it. I want my hip to fire this up. My hip enables this to go. This is a relatively locked in unit. You know, it's locked in. I don't want all of this to have articulation. I want this to be relatively solid, allowing me just to use the hip surge at close range. So again, we're at close range here. Fire the hip up as if it had a blade attached. You'll find that you come up on your toes on the back foot. So whichever hip is surging, it will typically end up with you being on the balls of your feet on that hand. But again, best way to imagine it, you've got a blade attached to your hip and you're going to shank him with that blade. That's the kind of mental imagery you need to use your pelvic girdle, to use your hips to get that upward surge. So whether it's a very close round uppercut, if you're in this shitty range and you want to get some meat into that shot, or if you're at an up close fence and you really want to get some ballistic damage into that chin jab, either way, used to that upward surge of the hip is really important. So hinge principle, hip and shoulder, slam the door. Corkscrew principle, turn and roll. Supinate to pronate, supinate to pronate. Or the upward surge, hip driving up. Nice and simple. A couple of ways for short range power generation. Give it a go.